Hi, everyone, and welcome to the QuitCast. My name is Becca, and I am an author coach, specifically working in author success. So how do we get you to a successful place, right? Like, how do we help you both act and feel more successful about your career and everything that you're doing? And it is important to know that when I pick topics and when I give advice on this particular YouTube channel, my goal is always success. It is not to placate people's emotions, and it isn't just to make us feel better about ourselves. That is not the goal. The goal is we want you to be better. And again, the Better Faster Academy, Better Faster is not about speed. It's about the level of exponential development and growth that you can have. So it's important to know that up front, because the topic that I'm going to cover today specifically is going to feel to a lot of us like we're just letting ourselves off the hook for something. Like somehow there's a drive that we could just reach for that would make it easier to do this thing. And then when we can't do it, that we should be judging ourselves, that there's something good about judging ourselves. But I want to start this whole process of talking about free time versus usable time. I need to start with the concept of guilt. What does guilt do? So when you feel guilty about something, and again, this is not my original idea, this has been talked about by so many psychologists, it's not even funny, but specifically the first time I heard about emotions as productive was through Laurel Mellon, and I've talked about her before, and I highly recommend if you ever have a chance to read one of her books, because I really do think she talks about emotions, especially for those of us who didn't get a lot of emotional tools as we were growing up. She talks about emotions in probably the best way that I have heard, and I haven't heard everybody, but she's my favorite. So the very first time I heard about this concept, it blew my mind so much that I went digging like everywhere I could find information about this, right? So guilt. What is guilt supposed to do? Emotions are supposed to be productive. They're supposed to either cause action on some level, or they're supposed to cause us to do something, right? They're supposed to, again, they're catalyzers. So emotions aren't just primarily meant to be felt. Yes, we feel emotions, but it's always for a purpose. So what is the purpose of guilt? Guilt is meant for us to parse through what is ours to accomplish. Like, what can I do? So when I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this, while the word should is always suspect, right? Like, we want to be cautious about the use of the word should when it is actually helpful. Like when I should have gotten up earlier this morning and it is actually something that was reasonable for me to expect from myself, then that guilt feeling, oh, I should have done that. That guilt that I feel should produce an emotional response. Like I shouldn't just sit there and feel guilty about myself, because eventually that spirals into something else that is extremely unhelpful. So the longer I feel myself in that guilt mode, or the more I see myself feeling guilty and not doing anything, and feeling guilty and not doing anything, the more suspect I want to be of that feeling. Because often those repetitive shoulds that we have, like the repetitive guilt, is evidence that we are expecting something from ourselves that is not reasonable. It is not reasonable. So let me just use one example, because this is the one I hear extremely often from introverted authors. And a lot of authors are introverts, right? Not all, but a lot. If I work in an extroverted job, or even an introverted job, but I still have to people a lot, or I'm expected to do a lot of tasks that I am not competent at, so I have to expend an awful lot of energy for that to happen, I am going to naturally spend through my energy pennies quickly, right? Like I am going to absolutely be drained when I come home. And the word drained, like the word drained should be a big indicator. So if I feel completely drained when I get home, the fact that I'm expecting myself to somehow just marshal extra energy, like it's just lying around. You can just pick it up wherever you want to pick it up from, or you can just think yourself into having it. Concepts. Like very few things that bother me more than the expectations that we hold that are so antithetical to anything that even resembles logic. And again, this is not to say that those of us who believe these things should be guilted into how awful it was that we felt them. The goal here is always just know better, do better, right? Like, and that is if I know for sure that the expectation I'm holding of myself is not realistic, I want to do the work to stop holding that expectation. I want to stop repeating it to myself, right? So let's say, just as a for instance, you are an introvert working an extroverted job. So you get home, you are absolutely spent. It is difficult for you to even process. And yet there's this thought in your head that's like, but you should be writing. You should be writing because you have time that is not already allocated to something else. Free time. You have free time. But does that free time also include an extra shot of energy from something? Because if it doesn't, then it is not usable. And you can go back and watch our Energy Pennies videos from like 2019, I think it was, where I talked about the different materials that the energy pennies are made out of. And I made a very specific distinction between activities that require multiple types of energy from us. So when I have to have like 4 different types of energy at the same time, do I have all of those in my stores right now to be able to spend? So if I sit down at the computer and open it and try and write, am I able to do that? Now, what I can do potentially, which maybe might be reasonable, is after work, try to decompress for a while, try to relax, try to get some quiet if that's what I need. And then later on, try to open up the manuscript. But this thought that somehow I should just be able to manufacture something that has not previously been manufactured is an extremely dangerous thought. And this is not the only situation where we have this. Free time is not usable time is a concept that I am trying to talk more about, because the whole idea of but I have this free time, but I have this free time gets brought up a lot, and especially with people who are either heading towards burnout or who have experienced burnout. So just because you are not doing anything already with that time does not mean that you have the energy to do the thing you want to do with it. And I always liken this to when we were teenagers and we would ask our parents for something and they'd be like, well, you have an allowance. Does your allowance allow you to buy that CD? I just dated myself. I apologize. Um, but does your allowance allow you to buy that CD? Do you have enough? So if I had $10 and the CD was 15, I would get frustrated that I couldn't buy it, right? I was always mad because I was a teenager, and that's just you're learning how to deal with all your emotions, right? But I couldn't buy the CD. No matter how much I wanted the CD, I could not buy the CD. So, or whatever, right? Any product or anything that you want to purchase. If you don't have the pennies for it, you can't purchase it. And I feel like we don't understand this concept well enough internally to be able to talk to ourselves about this when it happens. And a lot of us have that like, oh, but I can't let myself off the hook. But somehow if I am not pushing myself beyond my capacity, that I am not doing a good job. And I have been trying really hard to be gracious about the way that the productivity industrial complex talks about free time, as though, and I try to be gracious because there definitely are people who do not use all of their energy during the day. There are people who either their job is aligned with them, or they don't have the family responsibilities that some of us have, or they don't have an additional set of responsibilities on top of potentially job and family and writing and other things. Like there are some of us who are legitimately spending all of our energy pennies in a very short amount of time, and then we have all this time left. And so we think like, why can't I just write? Why can't I just do the marketing? Why can't I just take the class? And we don't stop and think like, do I have the energy to do this or not? Because if I open the computer, open the class, open the manuscript, and I can't do it, that is evidence that your energy is out. I don't know how else to say that. I love you. I do. I love that drive and that energy, like the energy behind the question, but also when history has proven to you that that's not going to happen. Like on some level, you have to stop expecting that from yourself, because then what happens is the guilt loses its capacity to make us act. Like when we feel guilty about it and we've learned how to soothe ourselves by either feeling shameful or like spiraling into shame spirals, and doing the whole like I'm awful, no one will ever love me, no one will ever trust me, I'll never be successful, like all of those things that we spiral into, then we lose the potency of that guilt. So we want to save guilt for when it is going to be the most potent that it can possibly be. Like we want that guilt to do its job. And here's the thing, past years of believing what, again, I use the phrase productivity industrial complex. And the reason I say that is because whenever someone is telling you something, they always have a reason why they're saying that. And sometimes the reason why is that it worked for them. Sometimes the reason why is that they have a vested interest in you believing that about yourself, right? So you always want to question, why might someone be saying this to me? So just as an example, I do not make videos all the time. And the reason I don't is because if I don't have something to say that I think is helpful, I'm not going to say anything. And I know that that is not the best idea in terms of like how to grow a business, but I'm not here to grow a business. Like that is just not my motivation. And I am not saying it's bad or wrong for people to want to grow businesses, because the people themselves are not the problem. People growing or creating businesses is not the problem. We are the problem. We are the ones who are listening to the advice and not pausing to question it, right? We're not creating any space between when someone gives me a piece of advice or tells me something is possible and then my execution of it or my assumption that I have to do it. So I have to do everything. Then I end up feeling like I have to do all these things and then I can't do anything because I'm so overwhelmed, right? So the goal of this, of having this discussion, is to say, when we feel I should do that, I absolutely need to do that, and I feel that guilt, I want that guilt to be productive, because the more I feel it and can't act on it, the less I'm likely to act on it in the future. And this is just the essential pain of life, right? It is literally the thing that we cannot get around. And I apologize for like the damn it, Becca, I get that. But it is so hard for me to watch us consistently over and over again ask the same questions. Like, why can't I do this? And then I answer and I'm like, okay, you have to change the expectation. But instead of doing the work to change the expectations, we keep holding the expectations of ourselves. And then we burn out and then we get frustrated and then we shame spiral. And we do all of these things instead of just changing the expectation. Like, just change the thing that we're bumping up against and let yourself hold a reasonable expectation for yourself. And again, I always have to caveat this. There's a segment of people that I'm not talking to with this video, right? Like those of us who are literally wired to just have that drive, that we're comfortable with so much pain and so much burnout and so much everything to be able to get to where we want to get to. That is a different type of personality, right? And I would say those people are not the people that I'm talking to in this video. So for the other 95%, of us, we have got to work on how we use guilt to motivate ourselves, because guilt should be a motivator. So let me use an example. Let's say I am on TikTok until midnight and I need to get up at 5 a.m. And I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm tired and I go back to sleep and sleep until 7. And now it's 7:15 and I can't do the things that I had planned to do at 5 a.m. Is it reasonable to expect myself to maybe not go on TikTok before I go to bed so that I can go to bed at 10 and get up at 5? Like, is that reasonable to expect from myself? Yes, that is a reasonable thing, because I don't have to do TikTok at night. I do not have to. I don't have to do Instagram or Facebook or, Twitter or whatever. Like, I don't have to do any of those things. I have to do my day job though. Like I can't not do my day job. And some of us can't write before we go to work, like for either time pressure reasons or energy reasons, sleep, right? Like we want to keep sleeping and keep our energy up. So some of us just don't have that capacity to not do the thing that is causing the energy drain. So when we can't do that, then we have to compensate for that. So either I have to uh, get energy when I come home, work on trying to maximize energy, rest, be quiet, those things, and then try to write after, or I need to do some other arranging of things so that it's possible for me to get at least a little bit of what I want. But sometimes what we actually need to do is spank that expectation that you should be doing something you can't do. If you've tried everything and you're still not capable of writing after you get home from an extremely exhausting job, and you also potentially can't just change that job, like leave the job or get a new job or transition or whatever, then we have to stop expecting ourselves to do that thing, because then all we're going to do is shame spiral. And so we want to instead look for, and this may take coaching, and I apologize for that. Not everything is something we can do on our own. I apologize. Come and find us. We have a Patreon. We coach in groups. We coach for free on our Facebook page. I'll put the link for the next free coaching that we're going to do in the show notes, which is coming up here very quickly after this airs live. But it is so important, like so important for us to know that if I am consistently not meeting an expectation, it is not helpful anymore. That expectation is not helpful. The expectation that all of my free time should be usable time is literally an invention. It is an invention of the Industrial Revolution. It is an invention of the productivity industrial complex. It is an invention. It is not true. It's an assumption that we're making that's neither logical nor accurate. And so I want us to just have that moment of like, okay, if this is me, if I'm the person who has to have this awful day job and I cannot write after the day job is over and I've tried everything, then I have to find some other times to write. I'm either going to write on the weekends, or I'm going to back out of a volunteer thing so that I can have that night free, or I'm going to go on vacation to write, like I'm going to take vacation, or I'm going to do everything I can do to get out of that job, whatever it is, right? Like whatever you can do to make yourself able to do that. But what I don't want us to do, because it never leads to success to do this, where if I am consistently proving that I'm not able to do something, to keep expecting myself to do it, that is not helping. It's not making us more successful. And I apologize for being so angry about this, because I am actually, like, I can feel it inside. But I'm seeing so much both on TikTok and Instagram and on YouTube of this, like, well, you just don't want it bad enough. Well, you should just want it more. Well, if you really cared about it, well, if you really, I can't. It frustrates me. So what I'm doing today is making us question the premise of free time. Not all free time is usable for what we want to use it for, because we don't always have the energy to execute what we wish we could. And if we can't do that, then we want to disconnect the expectation and reconnect the expectation to something else that's actually going to make us successful. So it takes you a year to finish a book. Is that not optimal? Right. Yeah. That's the essential pain of being where you are. Like that is the essential pain. But it does not mean that you can't still be successful as an author. Because again, author success literally comes in 1,000 forms. 1,000 forms. There are so many ways to be successful as an author. And we've latched on to these one or two ways, like somehow this is the only way. And if I don't fit that mold, I'm broken. Not true. There are 1,000 ways. And we're going to talk more about success archetypes. I had this whole plan to do this marketing series, and I just can't summon the energy to do things that are not as needed as this is. Like this is very necessary, and I could summon the energy to do this. But we're going to be talking more about expectations and success patterns, and why it's so important to expect from yourself what you know you can deliver. Even if what you know you can deliver is to push yourself beyond what you thought you were capable of. Not all of us are like that, but some of us are. But it's so important to know whether or not you are in the right lane for yourself. Because if you know you're in the right lane, then you have the ability to make decisions to stop listening to things that you don't need to listen to. And I apologize for not posting as much content over the last couple of years. It gets crazy at the BFA, right? Because so many authors need us one-on-one, but I recognize that everyone who listens to this YouTube channel also needs this, right? Like you need to see me one-on-one. And I need to do this more, because as I fall off of doing it, I feel like we fall off of the message, which is I have to expect what I know I can deliver on and stop listening to the thousand voices that are not for me. And if that means I'm going to outline, then that's what it means. And if it means I'm going to write slow, then that's what it means. But we need to get into the space that we have to inhabit, and we want to inhabit it fully. That's where success is. It is not inhabiting someone else's space. So buckle up, everybody. That's where we're headed. Please tune in for more information. We're going to post some things that I've been collecting from videos that we've done on TikTok, from stuff that we've done on Instagram, and try to funnel some of it back into the YouTube channel as well. And yeah, this will be important. So I hope you enjoy it. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be called. I have no idea, but I feel it. Like I feel it coming. So hopefully everyone has enjoyed this. I apologize for the damn it Becca moments. If you have not watched our videos before, we joke that every time I say something that's a hard truth, everybody yells, "Damn it, Becca," and we all drink. And so please, feel free to do that if you need to as you go through these videos. And if this is the first video you're seeing of ours, please do go back and watch. We question the premise of every possible thing that we can think of, everything, because my goal is to help authors have better tools to figure out what they should listen to and what they shouldn't. And again, the tagline for this QuitCast used to be, anyone can tell you what worked for them, and they can say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. I can tell you why. I'm obsessed with why. That is my goal. So go back and watch our question the premise episodes. And if you have watched all of them already, some of them you may need a refresher on, because you're still holding expectations that are not serving you. You're still making yourself feel guilty about things that are not helping you. So go back and watch. I hope you enjoy. I will be back. We'll see you all soon. Come over to the Patreon if you want more information, or if you need coaching, patreon.com/BeccaSign. Come and join us. I'll see everybody soon. Bye.